This video is for Aspen University, Culture and Diversity. Dr. Jimmy Flores is the instructor. My name is Tony Wright, and it is January 15th, 2018. There's 4 essays presenting on culture and diversity in the workplace. The first essay is in regards to a case of the University of Community College System versus Farmer. Between 1989 and 1991, only 1% of the university's faculty was black, and 87 to 89% of the full-time faculty were white. During this period, 25 to 27% of the full-time faculty were women. Johnson Makoba and Yvette Farmer both interviewed for the position teaching at the college. Makoba was selected over Farmer, and because of the minority bonus policy that the institution had in place, that allowed Yvette to be hired 1 year later. She brought suit against the university because of the Equal Pay Act and because of discrimination. The university ultimately won the lawsuit, or it was overturned in the Nevada Supreme Court. The university believed that hiring an African American male, thus increasing diversity of male staff, was best for the institution. In the court proceeding, the university demonstrated that it had compelling interest in fostering a culturally and ethnically diverse faculty. Failure to attract minority faculty perpetrates the university's white enclave and further limits students' exposure to multicultural diversity. With further argument in the Nevada Supreme Court, they were able to win. And the court ruled that it was not a violation of the of Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, and provided that the rights of another person are not unnecessarily trammeled or impeded, then their actions were within the law. They did, however, uphold the verdict that the university had violated the Equal Pay Act. The decision by the university to hire a minority staff member was made on the basis that the outcome would be positive and the decision would be right. It had 2 possible positive outcomes. The minority bonus program was intended to increase the diversity by enabling the hiring of an African American professor and a female professor. The mistake that the university made was not paying equal pay for the same job. Essay 2 was the Watchmark Continental Corporation has undergone many changes since being bought out and ultimately owned by IBM. The decision to outsource by IBM has made a lot of workers and American people unhappy. And according to a free market ethics theory, outsourcing is the correct option for U.S. high-tech companies. By outsourcing, the companies can save money based on taxes they pay in the offshore country. This increases the tax income in the countries and helps them grow. It saves the parent company money, and both benefit from the business deal. Moving jobs to where the talent pool is increases productivity and lowers cost. Due to the large number of skilled workers in these countries, they sometimes cannot produce enough challenging jobs for them. Opportunities are better in other countries, so those workers leave and go to other countries for better opportunities. Outsourcing offers opportunity for talented individuals to stay in their own country and work in their own country. If talented and skilled workers stay in their country and work for another country, the workers have job satisfaction as well as the economy gets better. The end result in outsourcing is that the consumer gets a better product at a lower cost, so it is a positive outcome. It also increases the productivity of the company, and they have higher profits. And it leads to increased jobs globally. There are negative points to this. When jobs move overseas, people in the United States lose jobs at home. And many times there are no alternative opportunities for those people to have the equal job that they have lost. Tax revenue is lost in our country. And lots of people will argue that the business prospers and humanity is lost, and that everything is sacrificed for profit. It is very hard to determine whether outsourcing is good or bad, and both sides of the argument have very strong points. The third essay is to present an argument that it is easier for employers to comply with diversity legislation in Canada than it is in the United States. And the laws that govern the Canadian business are far less stringent than in the United States. The Canadian federal laws only affect those industries that are federally regulated. Only about 10% of employees are covered by Canadian federal law. The remaining 90% is covered by provincial law in which they operate. Canada is divided into 10 provinces and 3 territories. Complaints of discrimination are heard by the Canadian Human Rights Commission if the employer is federally regulated, or by its provincial counterpart if it is not a federally regulated business. The person bringing forth the complaint does not have to hire a lawyer, so significant savings is had. The hearings are conducted by commissions or tribunals, and the monetary rewards are considerably lower than in the United States. Another feature of the Canadian Human Rights Act is pay equity. Legislation exists in every jurisdiction for pay equity, meaning that men and women doing the same job must be paid equally. The Canadian Employment Equity Act of 1986 was mostly symbolic and relied on gentle persuasion to gain compliance, and it chose to exclude much of the language that the United States uses as affirmative action laws. The fines that they impose on the business are usually small and are infrequently imposed. In the United States, where compliance is mandated and the potential lawsuit rewards can be in the millions, financial punishment is substantial. The Canadian Employment Act of 1986 was mostly symbolic, and there are 4 groups that it protects: Aboriginal people, women, people with disabilities, and visible minorities. Other minorities sought to be included but were excluded by being covered by the Canadian Human Rights Act. The implementation of the Equity Act has not been without problems. The employee must identify themselves as a minority by completing a questionnaire. And many times they are reluctant to complete the questionnaire, and because they want to fit into their organization and they don't want to be seen as different. If they do not fill out the paperwork, they cannot be counted in employment statistics. So therefore, the impact is not really known. There are strides being made to encourage flexibility and opportunity to minors. There are success stories such as the Royal Bank of Canada, and they have implemented successful strategies of accommodating employees' individual needs. When properly implemented, employment equity changes an organization's internal culture to one that welcomes diversity in all forms. And the 4th essay question is in regards to media diversity. And the media that I chose was television. And the 2-hour crime dramas that I chose to watch was Hawaii Five-0 and Blue Bloods. And in Hawaii Five-O, the two main characters were white males, but the supporting cast was much more diverse. There was a black character, two female characters, and an obese character. They were set in Hawaii, so most of the other characters were Hawaiian, so not much more diversity than that. The show targets white males. It features fast, flashy cars and high action scenes. The women are very thin, very beautifully, and they dress very sexually provocative. The women all will follow the lead characters and need to be rescued by the male characters. They are stereotyped as weaker and needing more rescue. The generalization of crime was gang connected, and the theme was gangs against the police. The mastermind was always wealthy, white, powerful, and using his influence to manipulate the crime. Blue Bloods, that cast was all white, and it depicted there were female cops, but they were all white. The main character is a white male that is the family patriarch, as well as the chief of police in New York. The characters that portrayed the crimes were all black, and the stereotype was young black gang members that were not productive in society. They were well known to the police and the criminal justice system. And one story depicted a woman being abused by her husband and was powerless to get out of the situation. This show is definitely targeted towards white males that are upper middle class, and all of the main characters were in the same upper middle class. The commercials were all aimed at men, and the largest number of commercials were for trucks. All of the trucks were driven by men, doing manly things such as hauling gravel, towing a boat, and driving on a mountain terrain. The next group of commercials was for beer. All of the beer commercials had white males in their late 30s or middle 30s. All of the women were scantily dressed, young, white, and thin. The third group of commercials was for restaurants. They all stereotyped men as working and women and they sexualized all the women. The women did not have speaking roles in the commercials, and there was not much else diversity. They did cement the gender roles of women being inferior to the men, and they associated with men being employed professionals buying trucks and outdoors activities, and women as homemakers caring for children and mostly unemployed. They marketed family cars to women and sports cars to men. And thank you. That concludes my essay.